What's up, everyone? How are you all? Today we are back with another blazing Naruto story.
6 years ago, the night bled into legend. The sky over Konohagakure had burned the color of dying embers as the nine-tailed fox tore through streets and memories alike. Shinobi fell, homes vanished, hope cracked, and at the heart of the calamity stood truths most of the village would never fully understand, of a masked intruder who pulled a monster from its prison, of crimson chains snapping, of a man who chose sacrifice over tomorrow. Minato Namikaze had known the cost the moment he decided to seal a god of hatred into a child. Kushina Uzumaki had known it even earlier and smiled anyway. They did not pray for their son's life to be easy. They prayed it would be meaningful. The village remembered the fox. It forgot the child. Naruto ran. His sandals slapped against dirt and broken stone as the shouts chased him through the outskirts of the village. Rage had a sound. It echoed in boots, in curses, in the scrape of metal lifted without permission. Don't let him escape, monster. Naruto didn't look back. He never did. Looking back only slowed him down, and slowing down meant pain. He didn't know why they hated him. Not really. He knew the names they used, the way shop doors closed before he reached them, the way hands shoved him aside like he was something dirty. He knew the orphanage had stopped being home a week ago. He knew that the old man with the pipe sometimes looked at him like a person, and that the ramen shop still served him food. That had to be enough. Branches clawed at his jacket as the village walls fell behind him. Naruto skidded on loose gravel, heart hammering, lungs burning. Ahead, darkness split by stone. A cave mouth, half hidden by moss and shadow. He dove inside without thinking. The noise followed him in, angry voices, confusion, a sharp laugh. Naruto pressed himself deeper, feet slipping as the cave sloped downward. The air grew colder, quieter. He ran until his legs refused to move. That was when he saw them. Two swords rested against a natural stone altar, untouched by rust or dust. One bore a warm-toned sheath, its hilt curved and gentle, red tassels swaying as if breathing. The other was darker, straighter, its presence sharp and still, like a held breath before a storm. Naruto stared. Something tugged at him, not fear. Recognition. Like, I've been here before, he thought, confused. A voice laughed softly. Well now, it said, smooth as silk. He found us. And so young, another voice replied, calm and cool. Interesting. Naruto spun, kunai-less hands raised. Who's there? Close your eyes, the first voice said. Not commanding. Inviting. Just for a moment. Against every lesson drilled into him by survival instinct, Naruto did. The cave vanished. He stood barefoot in a forest washed in falling petals, the air warm and humming with chakra. Trees stretched skyward beneath a blood-red sky that didn't feel threatening, only heavy, like memory. This is awesome. Naruto breathed, awe overtaking fear. Where am I? Our meeting place, said the calm voice. Turn around. He did. Two figures stood behind him, not gods, not illusions, but presences. One burned with warmth like a hearth fire, the other shimmered with restrained power, petals swirling at her feet like fragments of steel. Naruto swallowed. Are you, spirits? The warmer one smiled. Sharp boy. We are what sleeps within steel, the other said. Will and purpose given form. Naruto frowned, then glanced back toward where the swords had been. You mean, the blades? A nod. Two, in unison. We have waited, said the first. A long time. For someone who could hear us, said the second. Naruto scratched his cheek, nervous grin flickering. So, do you have names? They studied him then, not as weapons choosing a hand, but as guardians weighing a soul. Something unseen passed between them. I am Benihime, said the first, voice rich with promise. And I am Senbon Sakura, said the second, petals chiming softly as her name settled into the air. Naruto's eyes lit up. Those are, really cool. He bowed awkwardly, because it felt right. I'm Naruto Uzumaki. Nice to meet you. The forest stilled. For the first time in years, something like surprise touched the spirit's expressions. You heard us, Senbon Sakura said quietly. That means, Benihime added, stepping closer, you are not empty. Naruto didn't understand, but his chest hurt in a way that wasn't bad. Will you walk with us? Benihime asked. Not as a master, but as our chosen, Senbon Sakura finished. Naruto didn't hesitate. He didn't think of the villagers, or the names they called him, or the fists waiting outside the cave. He stepped forward and hugged them both. I don't want to be alone anymore, he said, voice shaking but certain. The world began to fade. Then wake, Benihime whispered. They're close. And remember, Senbon Sakura said as petals dissolved into light, call our names, and we will answer. Naruto's eyes snapped open. Shadows filled the cave mouth. Steel scraped stone. And for the first time in his life, Naruto Uzumaki didn't feel afraid. In the real world, Naruto woke with a gasp, stone biting cold against his cheek. Weight rested in his hands. He looked down. 2 swords lay where his palms had fallen, as if they had always belonged there. One pulsed with a deep, steady warmth. The other shimmered faintly, almost translucent, its surface catching the cave's dim light like drifting petals. The shouting returned all at once. There, the demon brat's still breathing. Don't let him move. Torches flared at the mouth of the cave. Pitchforks, clubs, kunai, faces twisted with something uglier than fear. Hatred that had fermented for years. Naruto pushed himself upright, fingers tightening around the hilts. I'm not alone, he reminded himself. A shinobi stepped forward, chakra flaring openly. The Uchiha's eyes gleamed red in the darkness as his hands blurred through seals, lips curling. Burn, he spat. Fire exploded from his mouth, filling the cave with roaring heat. Time slowed. Naruto saw the flames stretch toward him like a living thing, felt the air scream as it was torn apart. His body moved before thought caught up. He drove the warmer blade into the stone floor. The cave shuddered. Then he raised the second sword, instinct guiding his voice. Scatter. The blade dissolved, not into smoke, not into chakra, into petals. Thousands of glowing fragments burst outward, pale pink and razor sharp, forming a shifting wall between Naruto and the firestorm. The flames struck and vanished, snuffed out as if swallowed by spring itself. Silence followed. The villagers' smiles froze, then cracked. What is that? The Uchiha whispered, disbelief clawing into his voice. Someone screamed in rage. I don't care what trick this is. He dies now. They rushed him. The petals moved. They didn't explode outward. They closed in. Screams cut short. Blood misted the air in brief, violent arcs. Bodies collapsed without ever reaching him, weapons clattering uselessly to stone. Those who hadn't charged stumbled back, horror finally drowning hatred. What did you do? Someone sobbed. Monster. Naruto didn't answer right away. His eyes were empty, not glowing, not feral, just tired. I won't say it again, he said quietly. Leave, or don't walk out. Even the shinobi hesitated now. Mockery tried to rise, but it died in trembling throats. Then, a sound, not from outside, from him, a song without words, bleeding into his bones. Naruto looked down. The blade still embedded in the stone glowed crimson, heat rolling off it in waves. The melody sharpened, no longer gentle. It wasn't asking, it was demanding. Benihime's voice didn't reach his ears, but he understood her perfectly. They chose this. Naruto pulled the red blade free. The mob screamed and surged forward one last time, desperation overpowering sense. Naruto lifted the sword. Scream. Crimson energy tore through the cave like a living blade. It didn't slice, it erased. When the light faded, only scorched stone and torn clothing remained, drifting to the ground like ash. 3 figures dropped into the cave entrance in a blur of motion. Naruto turned, sword half raised, and froze. The third Hokage stood there, staff in hand, eyes wide with shock. 2 masked figures flanked him, chakra tight and controlled. One wore a cat-shaped mask, purple hair spilling down her back. The other's weasel mask tilted slightly as he took in the carnage. Naruto, the old man said carefully. What happened here? The adrenaline vanished all at once. Naruto swayed. The swords slipped from his grasp. Hiruzen moved instantly, catching the boy before he hit the ground, fingers checking for breath. Relief flickered across his face. Alive. His gaze swept the cave. No trace of the fox's chakra. No berserk taint. Only destruction, and the faint echo of something else. The 2 swords shimmered, then reappeared strapped securely across Naruto's back as if they had never left. Both Anbu stiffened. So it wasn't the 9 tails, the Hokage murmured. Then what are you, Naruto? He straightened, voice hardening. Neko. Take him to the hospital. She nodded instantly, lifting Naruto with practiced ease. Weasel, Hiruzen continued, eyes dark. Erase the evidence. These people broke my law. Yes, Hokage-sama. As they moved, the old man exhaled slowly, pipe already lit. I'm too old for this, he muttered. Far from the cave, deep within Naruto's mind, two spirits stood before iron bars stretching into darkness. Red light and falling petals reflected off massive, slitted eyes opening behind the seal. So, Benihime said softly, smile sharp as a blade. That thing lives inside him. Senbon Sakura's petals stirred, each one humming with restrained fury. Then we must decide, she replied. Whether it is prisoner or prey. The fox laughed. Konoha Hospital, late afternoon. The room smelled faintly of antiseptic and old paper. Hiruzen Sarutobi sat beside the bed, elbows resting on his knees, pipe unlit in his hand. Naruto slept deeply, chest rising and falling in a steady rhythm that eased, just slightly, the tension coiled in the old Hokage's spine. Two swords lay beside the boy. They did not rest like normal weapons. The darker blade hummed softly, petals of pale chakra flickering in and out of existence around its sheath. The crimson one pulsed like a heartbeat, warmth radiating from it in slow, deliberate waves. Hiruzen reached out, not to grab, only to test. The moment his fingers crossed an invisible boundary, the air shifted. From the darker sword, several translucent petals manifested instantly, sharp edges whispering against one another as they hovered inches from his hand. They did not strike, but the warning was unmistakable. From the red blade came something far more aggressive. Chakra flared violently, heat biting into the air with enough force to make Hiruzen withdraw at once. The barrier vanished. The swords settled again, calm as if nothing had happened. Hiruzen leaned back, exhaling slowly. So, he murmured, eyes heavy. You protect him. That alone told him more than any report ever could. Weapons like these were not unheard of. Legendary blades, summoned arms, cursed tools, but this was different. These swords did not merely respond to chakra. They chose. And they had chosen Naruto. The Hokage's thoughts drifted back, unwillingly, to the council chamber. Earlier, council chamber. The room had been loud. Too loud. Hiruzen stood at the head of the chamber, hands folded inside his sleeves as voices clashed around him. Clan heads sat in grim silence, absorbing the report he had just delivered. Across from them, the civilian council erupted like an exposed wound. Executed before it happens again. That thing slaughtered people. It's only a matter of time before the demon turns on the village. Hiruzen's gaze hardened. Fugaku Uchiha hadn't spoken once, but his jaw was tight, shoulders rigid. Hiyashi Hyuga's expression was unreadable. Sume Inuzuka's fingers curled into Kuromaru's fur as the great hound growled low in his throat. Shikaku Nara looked thoughtful, too thoughtful. Danzo said nothing, which, Hiruzen knew, was never a good sign. Enough. Killing intent flooded the chamber, not unleashed fully, but focused. It pressed down like a mountain, crushing words into silence. Civilians froze mid-breath, faces paling as survival instincts screamed at them. Hiruzen coughed into his fist, the pressure easing. Listen carefully, he said, voice calm and absolute. The civilians involved violated village law. They attacked Naruto Uzumaki. What occurred was self-defense. The clan heads nodded, some reluctantly. The civilians did not. How did a child obtain weapons capable of this? Shikaku asked, breaking the tension. His tone was lazy, but his eyes were sharp. I believe he found them beyond the village, Hiruzen replied. Likely during the chase. Kaharu leaned forward, lips thinning. Then those weapons must be confiscated immediately. Danzo's visible eye flickered, just for a moment. No, Hiruzen said simply. The word struck like a hammer. The swords reject anyone but Naruto, he continued. Forcibly taking them is not an option. Danzo's hand tightened on his cane. Outrage exploded again from the civilian side. That thing can't be trusted. It'll kill us all. Fugaku's thoughts burned behind his eyes. Some of my clan were there. This will only deepen the suspicion. The Hokage's gaze cut across the room, pinning the civilians where they sat. I will speak with Naruto personally, Hiruzen said. He trusts me, and I trust him. That silenced even the boldest voices. Meeting adjourned. Hiruzen turned his back on them without waiting for permission. Konoha Hospital, present. The memory faded. Hiruzen looked down at the boy in the bed. The same boy the village feared. The same boy who had stood alone against armed adults without losing himself to rage or the fox. Naruto stirred. His brow furrowed, lips parting slightly as if caught between dreams. Within his mindscape, petals drifted through a red sky. Iron bars loomed, and behind them, something ancient watched in silence as two figures stood between it and the child it claimed. Benihime's smile was sharp. Senbon Sakura's petals trembled. "This village will try to take him," Senbon Sakura said softly. Benihime's eyes glinted. "Then they will fail." Far away, Naruto's fingers twitched. And for the first time since the ceiling, the Nine Tails felt something new coil around its prison. Not fear. Competition. Hiruzen Sarutobi had been waiting. He sat quietly beside the hospital bed, listening to the steady rhythm of a child's breathing, hoping, praying, that when Naruto woke, the boy would still be Naruto. Not shattered, not hardened beyond his years. The faint twitch of eyelids broke the silence. Blue eyes opened. "GG." Naruto's voice was small, rough with sleep. Relief loosened something tight in the Hokage's chest. "Yes, Naruto-kun, I'm here." He leaned closer. "How are you feeling?" Naruto pushed himself upright and froze. The swords were there, right beside him. Reality crashed down all at once. It wasn't a dream. The cave, the screams, the blood. His hands began to shake. Hiruzen noticed instantly, already rising to his feet, ready to speak, ready to lie if he had to spare the boy from the weight of memory. But he never got the chance. The swords reacted. Soft light spilled outward, crimson warmth and drifting petals of pale chakra. The air changed, wrapping around Naruto like unseen arms. The trembling slowed. His breath steadied. Inside his chest, the panic loosened its grip. "We're here," Benihime's voice whispered, fierce and protective. "We will never abandon you," Senbon Sakura added, calm and unyielding. Naruto swallowed, then smiled faintly. Hiruzen watched, stunned. Not tools, he realized. Not weapons. Guardians. He set that thought aside. There were answers he needed. Answers only Naruto could give. "Naruto-kun," the Hokage said gently, "can you tell me what happened last night? And how those swords came into your possession?" Naruto nodded. He told him everything. The cave, the voices, the forest of falling petals. The two spirits who chose him, not because he was strong, but because he was him. Hiruzen listened without interrupting, even when the implications turned his blood cold. Sentient blades, ancient spirits, power that responded not to chakra alone, but to will. When Naruto finished, the room fell silent. Then, "GG," Naruto said, his voice suddenly serious. Hiruzen looked up. "Yes? How long were you planning to keep the Nine Tails a secret from me?" The words hit harder than any jutsu. Hiruzen froze. For a long moment, he couldn't speak. Naruto didn't look angry. He looked disappointed, thoughtful. "I met him," Naruto continued quietly. "In my head. I didn't know what he was at first. But now I do." The Hokage closed his eyes. "I was going to tell you when you became a genin," he admitted at last. "I wanted you to have a childhood first. I failed you." Naruto studied him, really studied him. Then climbed out of bed and wrapped his arms around the old man's waist. "It's okay, Gigi," he said softly. "I know you were trying to protect me." Hiruzen's breath hitched as he returned the hug, eyes stinging. "Minato, Kushina, your son is stronger than either of you ever knew. There are other truths," Naruto added quietly. "I can feel it." Hiruzen stiffened, but Naruto smiled. "You don't have to tell me yet. Just, don't lie when I'm ready, okay?" "I promise," Hiruzen said. Naruto's apartment, night. Sleep refused to come. Naruto lay on his bed, staring at the cracked ceiling, replaying everything over and over again. Zanpakuto. Spirits. A monster sealed inside him. His life hadn't changed. It had exploded. "This is real," Benihime said, her tone softer now. "And so are we. We did not expect to awaken again either," Senbon Sakura added. Naruto blinked. "Again?" There was a pause. "Yes," Benihime said slowly. "We had wielders before you." She spoke of a man obsessed with knowledge and invention, brilliant, reckless, endlessly curious. A wielder who fought only when forced, who treated battle like a puzzle instead of a passion. "I was made to cut," Benihime said with faint irritation. "Not to gather dust." Senbon Sakura followed. She spoke of a noble warrior bound by rules, torn between law and love, pride and grief. A man who enforced order even when it shattered his own heart. Naruto listened quietly. When she finished, he clenched his fists. "I wouldn't do that," he said firmly. I'd break every rule in the world to protect my family. The petals stirred. Benihime laughed softly. That, she said, is why you were chosen. A moment passed. Then, Naruto-kun, Senbon Sakura said, there is someone you must speak with. Naruto hesitated, then closed his eyes. The forest returned. Petals drifted. The air was heavy. Then he turned. Iron bars stretched endlessly before him. Behind them, 9 tails coiled. Red eyes snapped open. A massive fox stared down at him, grinned sharp and knowing. Around its neck hung a collar etched with sealing kanji. The fox leaned forward, chains rattling softly. So, the 9 tails rumbled, voice thick with amusement and menace. You finally came to look at me properly, container. Naruto swallowed, but he did not step back. Hello, little jailer, the 9 tails rumbled, lips curling back from rows of fangs. We have matters to discuss. The grin was all menace. Benihime's aura flared crimson. Senbon Sakura's petals sharpened, drifting forward like poised blades. The insult had not gone unnoticed. Naruto frowned. Don't call me that. The fox's ears twitched, amused. Ha, you have spirit, I'll give you that. Its massive eyes narrowed. What you did last night, slaughtering those foolish humans, was impressive. As expected of the vessel of the strongest Biju. The words struck like cold rain. Naruto's chest tightened. Before the swords could move, Naruto lifted a hand. Stop, he said calmly. Benihime and Senbon Sakura froze, surprise flashing across their faces. Slowly, reluctantly, they obeyed. The fox noticed everything, especially the fact that the weapons listened to the boy without question. Interesting. Naruto stepped forward, chin lifted, blue eyes steady. The fox felt it then, an unfamiliar sensation crawling along its spine. No fear. The fox bristled. Respect and irritation tangled together in its gut. Humans always looked away. Shinobi trembled. Even its siblings kept their distance from its overwhelming chakra. Yet this child stood firm. Just like them, the fox thought bitterly. Madara, Minato, HMPH, it snorted. Listen carefully, Kit. I can give you power beyond imagination. Power to crush anyone who dares look at you wrong. All you have to do is rely on me. The chains rattled softly as the fox leaned closer. Remove the seal around my neck. Let me loose, and I will make you unstoppable. Benihime stiffened. Senbon Sakura's petals trembled. They waited. Naruto tilted his head. So you're saying, if I free you, you'll give me power? The fox's grin widened. Exactly. For a heartbeat, the mindscape held its breath. Then Naruto spoke. Bite me. Silence. The fox blinked. The swords stared. Before anyone could react, Naruto jumped, high, impossibly high, and landed squarely on the 9-tail's snout. The impact echoed through the seal. Chains clanged violently. Naruto walked forward until he was inches from one massive, crimson eye. I do want power, he said evenly. But not like that. The fox snarled, yet did not move. I want strength to protect what matters to me, Naruto continued. That includes the people who care about me, and yeah, even you. The fox's pupil narrowed. Someday, Naruto said, a grin tugging at his lips, I'm gonna rip out all that hatred of yours. And when that happens, we won't be enemies. He leaned closer. We'll be partners, maybe even friends. The fox felt something crack. Not the seal. Something deeper. It could have devoured him. Torn him apart with a thought. And yet, it didn't. It just stared. The swords watched in stunned silence as Naruto stepped back, turning to them with that same reckless smile. And that goes for you too, he said. You're not tools. You're my partners too. We'll get stronger together. Benihime and Senbon Sakura dropped to one knee without hesitation, fists pressed to their chests. We swear, Benihime said fiercely. To walk beside you, Senbon Sakura added, voice steady as steel. Naruto shook his head and laughed. Nah, no swearing like that. He placed a hand on each of their shoulders. We grow together. That's the deal. Before either could react, Naruto leaned forward and kissed each of them lightly on the cheek, pure, innocent, and utterly unexpected. See you later, he said, waving as the mindscape began to fade. When Naruto vanished, silence returned. Then, Benihime laughed, loud and unrestrained, tears spilling freely. Senbon Sakura followed, her petals swirling joyfully through the air. They had waited lifetimes. Finally, a master worthy of them. Both turned toward the fox. Well, Benihime said with a teasing smile, that didn't go how you planned, did it? Senbon Sakura tilted her head thoughtfully. I wonder how he'll react when he learns the truth. The fox exhaled slowly. Then chakra surged. Smoke exploded outward. When it cleared, the massive beast was gone. In its place stood a tall woman with long crimson hair, sharp red eyes, fox ears twitching atop her head. 9 tails swayed behind her, powerful and elegant. She wore an orange kimono, chakras shimmering just beneath the fabric. She touched the seal collar at her neck, thoughtful. Could this child be the one father spoke of? For the first time in centuries, the 9 tails smiled, not in cruelty, but in hope. Wind rolled across the stone faces of the Hokage monument, tugging at a long red coat as a lone figure stood atop the fourth's carved head. Naruto Uzumaki watched the village below in silence. Konoha was alive. Vendors arguing prices, children running through streets, shinobi moving with purpose and familiarity. Laughter echoed. So did trust. A sight he once observed from shadows, now from above. 10 years. 10 years since the cave. 10 years since steel gained voices. 10 years since a monster became a name, and then a partner. A soft weight settled on his shoulder. You're spacing out again, a small, irritated voice said. If we're late, that screeching dolphin will blame me. And you know my ears aren't built for that. Naruto smirked. Perched there was a small crimson fox, tails neatly wrapped around herself, red eyes sharp and alert. White-tipped tail flicking in annoyance. Relax, Kurami, Naruto replied. We've got time. Kurami snorted. You said that last time. Despite her words, she didn't move. Naruto's gaze drifted back over the village as memories surfaced, uninvited, but no longer painful. Training had consumed his childhood. Not the shallow drills of academy students, but discipline forged through exhaustion and failure. Kenjutsu had become his foundation. Yugao Izuki and Hayate Gecko had pushed him mercilessly, footwork until his legs screamed, form until his hands bled, timing until thought disappeared. Yugao had once said, half awed and half concerned, that Naruto didn't learn swordsmanship. He remembered it. Benihime and Senbon Sakura had shaped that instinct into art. They taught him patience, control, intent. Kido came later, and nearly broke him. Chakra alone hadn't been enough. Unlocking spiritual pressure had felt like tearing open a second spine inside his soul. The first time his Ryotsu surged, he'd collapsed, muscles spasming as if his body rejected the power outright. He didn't quit. He never did. By 15, even seasoned Jonin had begun watching him warily. By 16, whispers followed him. Too sharp, too calm, too dangerous. The fox, Kurami, had changed as well. Trust had replaced chains. When Naruto removed the ceiling tag at 13, there had been no battle. No dominance. No screaming hatred. Just a fist bump. Orange chakra had flared around him like living fire, black markings tracing his skin, the Uzumaki spiral blazing proudly at his stomach. Partnership, not control. Finding out about his parents had been explosive. Hiruzen had chosen the right moment, or so he thought. Naruto had vanished before the old man finished speaking. The crater at the training grounds still hadn't been fully repaired. I'm cool now, Naruto had said afterward, smiling far too brightly. He wasn't lying. Meeting Minato had been complicated. Meeting Kushina had been devastating. Her stories burned into him, of love, of laughter, of sacrifice. Of a masked man who stole everything and vanished into shadows. Naruto never forgot that name. Never forgave it. The wind shifted. Naruto straightened, the present snapping back into place. He was no longer a child. His hair mirrored Minato's shape now, but crimson tipped each strand like living flame. His jaw was sharp, his expression controlled. Slitted pupils glinted within ocean blue eyes, calm, calculating, alert. Black sleeveless shirt, red coat edged in dark flames. Bandaged forearms, fingerless gloves bearing metal plates etched with skulls. Benihime rested against his back. Senbon Sakura waited at his hip. A shinobi. Not a weapon. Not a monster. A force. Below, villagers glanced up occasionally. Some frowned. Some whispered. Others looked away entirely. Naruto didn't care anymore. Those who tried to hurt him learned quickly. Those who crossed the line met Ibiki or Anko, and rarely repeated their mistakes. Kurami flicked her tail again. You gonna brood all day, or are we moving? Naruto chuckled. Alright, alright? The world blurred. One step, flash step, stone vanished beneath his feet as the monument fell away behind him. Kurami held on, ears flattened against the rush of air. Next time, she muttered, warn me first. Naruto's grin widened as the academy roof came into view. 10 years had passed, and the village had no idea what kind of storm was walking back into its classrooms. The Ninja Academy, training grounds. The roll call continued, but the mood in the classroom had already shifted. When Naruto stepped through the door, the air itself seemed to hesitate. He didn't swagger. He didn't grin. He simply walked in, and somehow that made it worse. Broad shoulders, controlled steps, that red coat hanging from his frame like it belonged there. And the fox, small, crimson, eyes sharp, perched calmly on his shoulder as if daring anyone to comment. Most of the girls forgot how to breathe. Most of the boys forgot how to speak. Iruka recovered first. You're just in time, Naruto. Take your seat. Naruto nodded once and moved to the back, Kurami hopping down onto the desk beside him, tail flicking lazily. That was when Kiba opened his mouth. The warning came too late. Naruto didn't shout, didn't even raise his voice. He just looked at Kiba. For a heartbeat, Kiba forgot where he was. Those eyes, blue ringed with something predatory, pinned him in place. It felt like staring down a mountain cat deciding whether you were worth the effort. Say another word, Naruto said quietly, teeth flashing just slightly, and I'll break your jaw. Akamaru whimpered. Kurami's gaze snapped to the pup, and a whisper of killing intent rolled off her like heat. Akamaru yelped and vanished into Kiba's jacket. Kiba swallowed hard and turned away, sweat running down his back. Iruka clapped his hands sharply. That's enough. Outside. Weapons and taijutsu evaluation. Weapons range. The results rolled in quickly. Mediocre. Average. Predictable. Until Naruto stepped forward. Whispers followed him. Doubt. Mockery. Old habits refusing to die. Naruto didn't react. He lined up his stance, feet grounded, shoulders relaxed, breath steady. The kunai left his hands without flourish, no wasted movement. Thunk, thunk, thunk. 10 clean strikes. Dead center. The range fell silent. Iruka stared, then laughed softly, pride shining through. Perfect score, Naruto. Highest in the class. Sakura's voice cut in sharply. That's impossible. He cheated. Iruka's expression hardened instantly. Enough. Naruto did no such thing. Mizuki's jaw tightened, nails biting into his palms. No matter, he thought darkly. The real test is still coming. Sparring circle. Iruka laid out the rules again, eyes lingering just a moment longer on Naruto. No ninjutsu. No genjutsu. No weapons. No crippling blows. The early matches went as expected. Speed. Technique. Fear. Then, next match, Iruka called, glancing at his clipboard, Naruto Uzumaki vs Sasuke Uchiha. The air snapped. Sasuke stepped forward immediately, eyes burning. This was his stage, his class, his revenge-driven path. And now the so-called dead last stood in front of him, calm, unreadable, unimpressed. Naruto stepped into the circle, Kurami hopping back to the sidelines with a grin. Don't break him too badly, she murmured. Sasuke scoffed. I won't need long. Iruka raised his hand. Begin. Sasuke moved first, fast, sharp, efficient. A straight punch aimed for Naruto's face. Naruto wasn't there. He slipped past it like smoke, pivoted, and tapped Sasuke's ribs with 2 fingers, tap tap, before stepping back. The crowd gasped. Sasuke's eyes widened, then narrowed in fury. He attacked again. Low sweep, elbow strike, knee to the gut. Naruto blocked everything with minimal movement, redirecting force instead of meeting it head-on. Each counter was controlled, precise, educational. It felt less like a fight, more like a lesson. Finally, Sasuke overextended. Naruto stepped inside his guard, twisted, and swept Sasuke's legs clean out from under him. Sasuke hit the dirt hard, breath knocked from his lungs. Naruto stood over him, hand raised. Iruka held his breath. Naruto lowered it. Match over, Iruka announced, stunned. Winner, Naruto Uzumaki. Silence. Then murmurs. Shock. Disbelief. Sasuke stared up at Naruto, teeth clenched. Humiliation burning hotter than any flame jutsu ever could. Naruto met his gaze, not with triumph, but with something far worse. Indifference. He turned and walked out of the circle. Kurami chuckled softly. You broke him. Naruto shrugged. He'll recover. Or he won't. From the sidelines, Mizuki's smile sharpened. Good, he thought. Let everyone see you shine. It'll make what comes next hurt so much more. High above the training grounds, unseen eyes watched the blonde shinobi with keen interest. And somewhere in the village's shadows, a plan began to move. The training field hadn't fully settled when Iruka raised his hand again. The final match, he announced, voice steady, Naruto Uzumaki vs Sasuke Uchiha. A ripple of excitement tore through the students. Sasuke stepped forward first, confidence radiating off him like heat. You should be honored, he said coolly. Losing to an Uchiha is the closest you'll ever get to greatness. Naruto didn't react. He simply took his place across the circle, posture loose, eyes unreadable. Hinata sighed softly. Satsuki rolled her eyes. Iruka dropped his hand. Begin. Sasuke exploded forward. Fists, feet, momentum chained together in a relentless assault. His movements were sharp, practiced, aggressive. To the spectators, it looked overwhelming. To Naruto, it looked slow. Rock Lee hits faster, Naruto thought calmly. And Guy-sensei doesn't telegraph at all. He slipped past each strike with minimal movement, turning his shoulders, shifting his weight, letting Sasuke burn himself out. Frustration crept into the Uchiha's eyes. Stop dodging. Sasuke snarled. Naruto exhaled. Enough. He stepped in. A knee drove cleanly into Sasuke's stomach. The air left Sasuke's lungs in a harsh gasp as his body folded. Before he could recover, Naruto followed through. One precise punch to the cheek, controlled but devastating. Sasuke flew out of the circle and hit the ground unconscious. Silence. Then, winner, Iruka said, voice thick with disbelief and pride, Naruto Uzumaki. Mizuki clenched his jaw as he helped carry Sasuke away, anger boiling beneath a forced smile. That brat was never supposed to win. Hinata watched Naruto with bright eyes, a knowing smile tugging at her lips. Satsuki noticed, and frowned. Inside the academy, the last test began quietly. Naruto waited his turn, scratching Kurami behind the ears as she purred contentedly on his shoulder. We did it, he whispered. We're really doing this. Kurami's smile was sly. Oh, we're just getting started. And after this, we have something special planned. Naruto blinked. Special how? She didn't answer. Iruka called his name. Inside the testing room, Naruto felt it immediately. Mizuki's emotions churned dark and sharp. Kurami's tail flicked once in warning. Naruto performed the substitution flawlessly. His transformation was perfect. Then came the final request. One clone, Iruka said. Any clone you choose. Naruto smiled. 5 identical figures appeared beside him. Iruka stared, then laughed. Congratulations, Naruto. You pass. The black forehead protector felt heavier than it looked. Important. Real. Outside, dusk. Whispers followed him as he left the academy. Fear. Old hatred. Cowardice. Naruto didn't slow. He reached home as the sun dipped low, orange light painting the walls in familiar warmth. Kurami hopped down and, with a soft shimmer, shifted into her human form. She stepped closer. Are you ready now? She asked gently. Naruto nodded, then froze as she pulled him into a firm embrace and pressed a brief, sincere kiss to his lips. Not teasing, not playful, real. Naruto stood there stunned as she rested her forehead against his. This, Kurami said softly, is where everything changes. Behind them, the room darkened. And from the shadows, 2 familiar presences stirred, watching, smiling, waiting. Late at night, the room was quiet, too quiet. Naruto's eyes opened slowly. Kurami's warmth was still beside him. Senbon Sakura's presence calm and steady, Benihime's like a sleeping ember. For a moment, he simply breathed. Then he saw it. Moonlight spilled through the window, full and silver. A shadow cut across it, fast, purposeful. A figure leaping across rooftops with a massive scroll strapped to his back. Naruto's expression hardened. The forbidden scroll. He was already moving. The shift of the bed woke the others instantly. Naru-sama? Senbon Sakura asked, sitting up. Why are you? Mizuki, Naruto said, already pulling on his coat. He has the scroll. That was all it took. Benihime and Senbon Sakura dissolved into steel in his hands. Kurami's form melted into chakra, retreating inward with a warning pulse of intent. Be careful, she murmured from within. Naruto vanished. The forest, beyond the village. Iruka was bleeding. Cuts lined his arms and side, breath coming in ragged pulls as he dropped to one knee. Across from him, Mizuki stood panting, eyes wild, the massive scroll slung over his shoulder like a prize. Why, Mizuki? Iruka demanded. Why betray the village? Mizuki laughed, high and unhinged. Because loyalty doesn't reward you, Iruka. Power does. His eyes gleamed. Orochimaru-sama will make me more than a nobody. He ripped a giant shuriken free and hurled it with everything he had. Iruka didn't move. His body wouldn't listen anymore. So this is it, he thought, closing his eyes. The impact never came. Instead, a sharp clang echoed through the trees. Iruka opened his eyes. A hand had stopped the shuriken inches from his face. Bare-handed. Naruto? Iruka breathed. Naruto stood between them, eyes cold, fingers tightening as the weapon bent slightly under his grip. He tossed it aside like scrap metal and faced Mizuki. Let's see, Naruto said calmly. You stole the forbidden scroll. Tried to kill my teacher. And you're selling it to the worst traitor Konoha has ever produced. His eyes narrowed. Yeah, that earns you consequences. Mizuki recoiled for half a second, then sneered. Still playing hero, demon? Want to know why everyone hates you? Why even Iruka? Don't. Iruka shouted. Naruto, don't listen. Naruto didn't even glance back. Nake. Benihime sang. Crimson light tore through the air. Mizuki screamed as his left arm was severed cleanly, hitting the ground with a wet thud. He collapsed, shrieking, clutching the stump. Naruto's voice was flat. If you're talking about the 9 tails, I've known for years. Mizuki stared at him in horror. Naruto sheathed Benihime and drew Senbon Sakura, petals already whispering around the blade. You should feel honored, Naruto said softly. You're dying by something beautiful. Mizuki laughed weakly, hysteria bleeding through the pain. Flowers? That's your big trick? Chire. The petal swallowed him. For a moment, there was only the sound of wind. Then silence. When Senbon Sakura reformed, Mizuki lay still, lifeless, blood staining the forest floor like scattered ink. Naruto turned away. Are you hurt? He asked Iruka, concern finally breaking through the steel in his tone. Iruka stared at him. Really stared at him, then smiled faintly. I'm okay. You did the right thing. Naruto offered his hand. Iruka took it, leaning heavily on him as they stood. As Iruka glanced back once more at Mizuki's body, a thought crossed his mind, unsettling, yet undeniable. Beautiful, and deadly. He looked at Naruto's back, at the swords resting there. Just how far will you go, Naruto Uzumaki? High above, the moon watched in silence. And somewhere deep within the village, forces far darker than Mizuki began to take notice. Naruto stepped into the classroom with Kurami perched lazily on his shoulder, her tail swaying with quiet confidence. The room felt familiar, yet different. Maybe it was him who had changed. Or maybe the world had finally started to notice. His eyes swept the room. Shikamaru was already asleep, cheek pressed against his desk, while Choji sat beside him doing what he did best, crunching loudly on a bag of chips. Kiba was arguing with Akamaru in hushed tones, Shino standing beside them like a silent shadow. Then Naruto blinked. Hinata and Satsuki were talking. Not arguing, not competing, talking, almost like friends. That alone was shocking. Naruto took a moment longer than necessary to look at them. He wouldn't admit it out loud, but, yeah. They'd both grown up strong. Confident. Dangerous in their own ways. He moved and took the seat beside them. Morning, Hinata-chan. Satsuki-chan. Satsuki smiled easily. Hinata's lips curved into a knowing smirk. Ready for team placements, Naruto-kun? Hinata asked. Naruto leaned back. Definitely. Think we'll end up together? Hinata shrugged lightly. Who knows? But I wouldn't mind. Kurami's ears twitched. She eyed Hinata thoughtfully, then smirked to herself. Interesting girl. Satsuki, meanwhile, was staring at Kurami with barely contained excitement. Naruto-kun, can I pet her? Before Naruto could answer, Kurami hopped down onto Satsuki's lap, curling comfortably against her stomach. Satsuki froze, then melted. Oh, she's so soft. Kurami purred loudly, clearly enjoying herself. Naruto stared. That's new. Kurami doesn't like people. At all. Hinata narrowed her eyes slightly. Satsuki smirked back at her. A silent rivalry reignited. Across the room, Sasuke noticed. His jaw tightened. That idiot shouldn't be near them, he thought coldly. Especially not Satsuki. He turned away, brooding. Hokage Tower, Jonin meeting. The third Hokage stood at the front, pipe unlit, eyes sharp. Team 7, he announced, will consist of Sasuke Uchiha, Sakura Haruno, Satsuki Uchiha, and Naruto Uzumaki. Their leader will be Kakashi Hatake. A silver-haired man lazily lifted his eye from his orange book. Yugao stiffened. Hokage-sama, I requested Naruto as my apprentice. Hiruzen met her gaze calmly. I know, but the village needs you in Anbu right now. Yugao lowered her head, but paused when he continued. You may continue training Naruto whenever possible. She nodded slowly. I'll take what I can get. Back at the academy, Iruka read out the teams. Gasps, groans, smiles, silence. Team 7, some were pleased, some furious. Naruto? Neutral. 2 hours passed. Sakura paced. Sasuke glared. Satsuki crossed her arms. Kurami flattened her ears as Sakura screamed again. Where's our sensei? Satsuki snapped. Shut it before you rupture something. Naruto added calmly. Keep yelling and I'll let Kurami bite you. Kurami's eyes glowed faintly. Sakura shut up instantly. The door slid open. A tall man with silver hair and a mask stepped in, orange book in hand. He said lazily. You all look boring. Veins popped. Rooftop, he added, and vanished. Naruto disappeared instantly. The others stared. How did he do that? Above them, on the rooftop, the future of Team 7 waited to be tested. And none of them, not even Kakashi, truly understood yet. What kind of monster they'd just been assigned. On the rooftop, continued. The air on the rooftop felt heavier than it had a moment ago. Sasuke and Sakura were still pinned face first to the ground, limbs locked by invisible force. Their anger echoed loudly, struggling, cursing, refusing to understand just how badly they had misstepped. Naruto stood over them, expression calm but eyes cold. This, he said evenly, is your warning. Sasuke snarled. You think this makes you strong? Using tricks. Naruto crouched slightly, just enough to meet Sasuke's eyes. No. What makes me strong is knowing when not to kill someone. That shut Sasuke up. Sakura swallowed hard, fear finally creeping past her pride. Kakashi watched silently, one visible eye sharp with calculation. That wasn't rage, he realized. That was restraint. Release them, Kakashi said at last. You've made your point. Naruto studied him for a moment, then nodded. Bakudo release. The pressure vanished. Sasuke and Sakura hit the ground hard. Gasping as feeling returned to their bodies. Sakura scrambled back, eyes wide. Sasuke rose slowly, fist shaking, not from pain, but humiliation. Satsuki stepped forward immediately, placing herself slightly in front of Naruto without realizing it. You crossed a line, she said flatly to Sasuke. Both of you. Sasuke opened his mouth, then closed it again. Something about her tone unsettled him. Kurami's tail flicked lazily as she settled back onto Naruto's shoulder, red eyes glowing faintly. Next time, she said sweetly, I won't be so patient. Sakura visibly paled. Kakashi cleared his throat. Alright, team bonding exercise over. His gaze lingered on Naruto. Tomorrow morning, training ground 3, survival test. Sakura perked up. A test? What kind of test? Kakashi's eye curved into a smile beneath his mask. One where only 2 of you pass. What? Sakura shrieked. Sasuke smirked. So one of us fails. Wrong, Kakashi replied calmly. 3 of you fail, unless you learn something important. Naruto said nothing, but Benihime's presence stirred faintly at his back, amused. This man is dangerous, she murmured. Not with power, Senbon Sakura added. With intent. Kurami grinned. I like him already. As Kakashi vanished in a swirl of leaves, silence returned to the rooftop. Sasuke turned away first, jaw tight. Sakura followed, still shaken. Satsuki lingered for a moment, glancing at Naruto. You didn't have to hold back. Naruto shrugged. Didn't need to. She studied him, then nodded once before leaving. Naruto remained alone on the rooftop, moonlight catching in his hair. Kurami leaned closer, voice low. They're going to hate you more now. Naruto smiled faintly. That's fine. His gaze drifted toward the Hokage monument in the distance. I didn't come back to be liked, he said quietly. I came back to change things. Far below, unseen eyes watched Team 7's newest formation with growing interest. And somewhere in the dark, an old enemy smiled. The air between them snapped. Kakashi skidded back across the dirt, boots carving shallow trenches as he absorbed the force of Naruto's push. Sparks died out between steel and kunai as distance opened once more. For a brief second, neither moved. Then Kakashi straightened, rolling his injured shoulder once. Blood seeped through the fabric where Byakurai had torn through muscle. His visible eye narrowed, not in anger, but something heavier. He's not testing me, Kakashi realized. He's judging me. Naruto stood still, Senbon Sakura lowered at his side, Ryotsu pressing down like an unseen weight. Kurami's chakra stirred beneath his skin, but remained leashed, controlled. You're fast, Kakashi said calmly. And strong. But charging your Jonin instructor head-on isn't teamwork. Naruto's eyes burned. You lost the right to lecture me about teamwork. That hit harder than any jutsu. Kakashi exhaled slowly. You're right, he admitted. And that's why I'm still standing here. In a blur, Kakashi vanished, reappearing above Naruto, leg descending in a crushing axe kick. Naruto didn't dodge. He caught it. One hand clamped around Kakashi's ankle, stopping the blow dead. Shock flashed across Kakashi's face. Naruto threw him. Kakashi flipped mid-air, twisting just enough to land in a crouch, fingers slamming into the ground. Earth-style. Headhunter. The soil surged upward and froze. Petals bloomed. Senbon Sakura dissolved into a storm of shimmering fragments, slicing through the earth jutsu before it could fully form. Kakashi leapt back again, breathing harder now. Ridiculous control, he thought. And he's still holding back. Naruto took a step forward. You told us one of us would fail, he said coldly. That's a lie. Kakashi blinked. You're not testing skill, Naruto continued. You're testing obedience, hunger, fear. You want us to turn on each other. He pointed toward the forest. Sakura's desperate. Sasuke's obsessed. Satsuki's smart enough to see through it. His gaze snapped back to Kakashi. And you're waiting to see who breaks first. Silence stretched. Then Kakashi smiled. Small, tired, genuine. You figured it out faster than I expected. Naruto's Ryotsu spiked, just a little. Then listen carefully, Naruto said. I don't break. I don't starve my teammates. And I don't abandon my family. Kakashi closed his Sharingan eye and tied his headband back down. Good, he said softly. Then let's end this. He tossed two bells into the air. Naruto didn't move. Satsuki burst from the tree line at the same instant, Sharingan spinning as she snatched one bell mid-flight. A heartbeat later, Sasuke lunged from the opposite side, barely grabbing the second. The third bell hit the ground. Useless. Sakura stumbled out moments later, panting, eyes widening as she saw the bells already claimed. I failed, she whispered. Kakashi shook his head. No. He looked at Naruto. You passed the moment you chose them over yourself. Naruto stared at him, then finally relaxed. The pressure lifted. Senbon Sakura reformed in his hand, and he sheathed it smoothly. Kakashi's smile widened beneath his mask. Team 7, he announced, is officially approved. Sasuke stared at Naruto, conflicted rage and grudging respect warring in his eyes. Satsuki smirked. Told you. Sakura swallowed, shame burning, but something else too. Resolve. Naruto turned away, already walking toward the log. Kurami's voice echoed warmly inside him. You did good. Naruto smiled faintly. This wasn't the beginning of his journey. It was the moment Konoha finally realized. The storm it had created was no longer a child. The wind died down. Petals settled. Training Ground 7 looked like a battlefield carved by something ancient, tree trunks shredded, earth scored deep, the air still humming with residual power. Naruto stood at the center of it all, breathing slow, Senbon Sakura's Bankai dissolving back into silence as the final petals faded into nothingness. Kakashi remained seated on the ground, whole again, alive again, still processing everything that had just happened. Naruto's words echoed louder than any jutsu ever could. I forgive you, Kakashi ni. Kakashi pulled himself to his feet, straightening his vest, then looked at his team. Sasuke stared at Naruto with clenched fists, not rage this time, but something sharper. Respect he didn't want to admit. Sakura looked between Naruto and Kakashi, chest tight. For the first time since entering the academy, she realized just how small her world had been. Satsuki stepped beside Naruto, quiet but steady. Kakashi cleared his throat. "You've all already heard the lesson," he said, voice firm now. "But I'll say it again, because it's the foundation of everything." He looked directly at Sasuke. Then Sakura. Then Satsuki. Then Naruto. Those who break the rules are scum. But those who abandon their comrades are worse than scum. Something shifted, not just in Team 7. In him. Kakashi tied his headband fully back into place, covering the Sharingan once more, not as a shield, but as a choice. Team 7, he said, eyes smiling genuinely now, is officially recognized. For a moment, no one spoke. Then Kurami's voice echoed warmly in Naruto's mind. "You did it." Naruto exhaled slowly, tension finally leaving his shoulders. Satsuki broke the silence first. "So, what's our first mission?" Kakashi's smile sharpened just a bit. "Oh, nothing special," he said lightly. "Just a simple D rank. Village work, escorting, chores." Sasuke scoffed. "TCH, a waste of time." Naruto glanced at him sideways. "Careful. Those wastes of time keep people alive." Sasuke didn't argue. That alone surprised everyone. Kakashi turned toward the village, hands in pockets. "Get some rest. Tomorrow, you start learning what it really means to be shinobi." As they began to leave, Kakashi paused, just long enough to speak without turning around. "Naruto." Naruto stopped. "Thank you." Naruto nodded once. "Don't make me regret it." Kakashi smiled. That night, as Naruto lay awake in his room, moonlight spilling across the floor, Benihime's voice drifted softly through his thoughts. "You chose mercy." Senbon Sakura followed. In strength, Kurami curled closer within his soul, 9 tails swaying slowly. And now the world will start moving. Far beyond Konoha's walls, in shadows that twisted unnaturally. A single eye opened, red, spiral patterned. "So," a distorted voice murmured, amused, intrigued. "The child finally steps onto the board." The shadows smiled. And the game began. Konoha, late afternoon. Naruto had officially decided that D-rank missions were a form of psychological torture. He dragged himself through the streets, coat slung loosely over his shoulders, eyes half-lidded with irritation. His hands still smelled faintly of soap and wet leaves. Gutters, grass, dogs, cats. Too many damn cats. "If I see Tora one more time," Naruto muttered darkly, "I'm gonna." He stopped. Right on the stairs leading up to his home sat a cat. Pure white fur, gold eyes, and teeth that were just a little too long. Naruto's eyebrow twitched. "You've got to be kidding me." He took one step forward. The cat lifted a paw. Stopped him. Naruto blinked. "Huh?" The feline turned, flicked its tail once, and ran. "Hey!" Naruto took off after it without thinking. The cat was fast, far faster than any normal animal. It darted across rooftops, leapt alley gaps effortlessly, and vanished into the tree line beyond the village wall. Naruto followed, breath steady, muscles burning, not from exhaustion, but from surprise. That thing moves like a shinobi. The forest they entered felt wrong. Not hostile, just hidden. Old trees, dense stone, the air thick with history. The cat stopped and tapped the ground with one delicate paw. Click, the earth split open. A hidden metal hatch yawned wide, revealing a ladder descending into darkness. Naruto stared. "Okay, this is new." The cat jumped in without hesitation. Naruto hesitated. "Benihime?" he asked quietly. "Follow it," she replied without pause. "This place. I know it." Naruto exhaled once and dropped straight down, bypassing the ladder entirely. Underground training domain. He fell, then landed smoothly, wind chakra cushioning his descent. Naruto straightened and froze. Rock formations stretched in every direction. Training pillars, mountain ridges carved by hand. A steaming hot spring bubbled quietly nearby. The air buzzed with latent power. "This place," Naruto whispered. Benihime sounded delighted. "I knew it. This is one of Kazuki's old designs. A sealed training domain, but it's still active," Naruto murmured. "That's because we kept it that way, NYA." Naruto turned. The white cat sat atop a stone pillar, now unmistakably smug. "You can talk?" Naruto asked flatly. The cat grinned. "Of course I can, NYA. My name is Shiro, of the Cat Alliance clan." Naruto blinked. Of course you are. Yes, I may summon, Shiro continued proudly. And you, Naruto Uzumaki, are very late. Late for what? For destiny, NYA. That word landed heavier than it should have. Shiro hopped down and paced in a circle. Long ago, our summoner, Yoruichi Shiwan, asked us to prepare this place. She said that when Benihime awakened again, we were to guide her chosen wielder here. Naruto felt Kurami stir sharply inside him. She also told us, Shiro added casually, that the one who came would be the child of prophecy, NYA. Kurami's eyes widened in Naruto's mind. I knew it. Naruto clenched his fists. You waited, how long? Thousands of years, Shiro replied simply. We serve those with pure hearts. You qualify. Benihime's voice was warm. Kazuki always planned ahead, even beyond his own era. Kurami chimed in gently. Naruto-kun, this path fits you. Senbon Sakura followed, steady and resolute. We will not let you walk it alone. Naruto stood silent for a long moment. Then he bowed. I accept your contract, he said firmly. And the Shiwan clan's techniques. Shiro squealed. Yata. A scroll appeared in Naruto's hands. He signed it without hesitation, blood sealing the pact. The ground hummed in approval. Shiro vanished in a puff of smoke, her laughter echoing. We'll see you again soon, Summoner, NYA. Naruto exhaled, then noticed a second scroll lying nearby. Black and gold, Shiwan crest. He opened it. The words stared back at him. Shunko, flash war cry. Kurami's voice was reverent. A fusion technique, chakra and spiritual energy unified. Benihime sounded almost proud. Power born from speed, control, and will. Naruto closed the scroll slowly. A grin spread across his face. Guess D-rank missions weren't a total waste after all. Far above, Konoha slept peacefully. Unaware that beneath its roots, a storm had just found a new shape. Konoha, mission assignment room. Team 7 stood at attention. Well, mostly at attention. Naruto's patience finally snapped. Stop, I can't do this anymore. The room went dead silent. Iruka stiffened. Kakashi froze mid-eye smile. The third Hokage slowly lowered his pipe. Naruto stepped forward, hands clenched. Gigi, we've been doing D-ranks for a month. 30 missions. 30. I've cleaned kennels, chased cats, trimmed hedges, and I swear if I touch another rake I'm going to lose my mind. We're ready for a C rank. Satsuki nodded firmly. Sasuke crossed his arms in agreement. Even Sakura, for once, looked serious. Sarutobi studied them carefully, then turned his gaze to Kakashi. Well? The Hokage asked. Kakashi scratched the back of his head. Yeah, they're ready. That was all it took. Naruto nearly grinned himself into another dimension. Very well, Sarutobi said. Send him in. The doors opened, and in walked disappointment incarnate. An old man with messy gray hair, sake bottle in hand, half-lidded eyes reeking of alcohol. You've got to be kidding me, he slurred. These are the ninjas I paid for? Kids? The temperature dropped. Killing intent erupted. Sasuke's glare sharpened. Satsuki's chakra flared. Sakura clenched her fists. Naruto's was worse. Benihime and Senbon Sakura answered. The room trembled. Tazuna went pale, knees shaking, bottle slipping from his hand. Kakashi stepped forward instantly. That's enough. Our mission is to protect him, not scare him to death. Naruto didn't move. Benihime. Senbon Sakura. The pressure vanished instantly. The old man collapsed onto a chair, wheezing. Sarutobi coughed lightly. Team 7, your mission is to escort Tazuna-san to the land of waves and ensure his safety. Is that understood? Hi, HN, hi, Gigi. 4 heads turned slowly toward Naruto. What? He frowned. That's the highest respect level I've got. Sarutobi chuckled quietly. Prepare your equipment. 1 hour. Meet at the front gate. Uchiha residence. Satsuki tightened the strap on her weapons pouch while Sasuke checked his shuriken, again. They were excited. Finally, something real. Makoto watched them from the doorway, worry hidden behind a gentle smile. AC rank already, she murmured. You've grown fast. Satsuki beamed. We'll be gone a few weeks, Kasan, but we'll be fine. Sasuke scoffed. Of course we will. He walked past them toward the training grounds without another word. Makoto sighed. She turned to Satsuki, placing both hands on her shoulders. Please, watch over your brother. Satsuki hesitated, then nodded. I will. Even if he never thanked her. Even if he never listened. Because family mattered. Whether Sasuke understood that or not. Elsewhere in Konoha, Naruto stood on his balcony, pack at his feet, staring toward the horizon. Kurami sat beside him in her fox form, tail flicking thoughtfully. This mission isn't what it looks like, she said quietly. Naruto smirked. Good. I was hoping for that. Benihime's voice was amused. The world rarely changes without blood. Senbon Sakura followed calmly. But this is where paths begin to diverge. Naruto tied his forehead protector tight. Then let's walk it. Far away, beyond the land of waves. Something stirred. And for the first time, Team 7 would step outside the safety of Konoha. Into a world that would not forgive weakness. With Sakura. Sakura's room looked like a battlefield of silk, perfume bottles, and far too many outfit choices. Okay, maybe this one, she muttered, holding up a dress before tossing it aside. No, this one. Sasuke-kun would definitely notice this. She paused, cheeks warm, imagining futures that hadn't earned her a single step yet. Then she scoffed at herself and shoved the dresses aside. This is a mission, she reminded herself, forcing the thought to stick. Not a date. For once, she packed actual ninja gear on top of everything else. With Naruto's preparation took all of 5 minutes. Food rations, a compact tent, medical supplies. That was it. Any attempt to pack spare weapons ended the same way, an unseen pressure gently but firmly refusing him. Benihime and Senbon Sakura had made their stance clear long ago. We are enough, they would say. Naruto found it more amusing than restrictive. He stepped out into the village air, letting the late light wash over him as he wandered without direction, until he felt it. Eyes on him. All right, he said calmly, stopping near a training ground. You can come out now. A presence emerged from the trees. Hinata Hyuga. She approached without hesitation, posture confident, eyes steady. You sensed me quickly, she said with a small, knowing smile. Naruto raised a brow. Why follow me? Hinata took a breath, then closed the distance, briefly, warmly, offering a quiet, sincere farewell that needed no explanation or detail beyond the moment itself. It was grounding, human. When they separated, she smiled. Come back safely. I will, Naruto replied, meaning it. She left as quickly as she had come. Inside, Kurami chuckled softly. She's good for you. Benihime agreed. Balance matters. Naruto smiled to himself and headed for the gate. At the village gate, Team 7 assembled under the morning sky. Kakashi gave a casual nod. Everyone ready? Hi. They moved out. The road was quiet. Too quiet. Naruto, Satsuki, and Kakashi felt it at the same time. A puddle, out of place. They passed it. The attack came instantly. 2 figures erupted from the water, chains flashing as they struck at Kakashi, only to tear apart a log. Substitution, Sakura breathed. Before the attackers could pivot, Naruto lifted a hand. Bakudo, Rikujakoro. 6 bands of light slammed into one attacker, pinning him in place mid-stride. Shock rippled across the battlefield. The second attacker lunged, only to be intercepted by coordinated strikes from Satsuki and Sasuke, forcing him off balance. Kakashi reappeared behind them, calm and precise, ending the skirmish in seconds. Well done, he said, eyes smiling. That was textbook teamwork. Everyone stared at Naruto. What was that? Sakura asked. Naruto shrugged. A binding technique. Kakashi's gaze lingered, curious, assessing, but he turned to Tazuna instead, voice serious. Care to explain why hired thugs tried to kill you? Tazuna sighed and told them everything. Gato, the land of waves, the bridge, and the lie by omission. Silence followed. Kakashi looked to his team. This could escalate. We can turn back. I'm staying, Naruto said immediately. Satsuki nodded. Me too. Sasuke smirked. Like I'd leave. Sakura hesitated, then squared her shoulders. I'll go. Kakashi nodded once. Then we proceed. Tazuna bowed deeply. Thank you. Elsewhere, in the shadows. A dim room. The smell of wealth and rot. Gato ranted, until steel whispered near his throat. Zabuza Momochi stood close, blade steady. Beside him, Haku waited, silent and watchful. Relax, Zabuza said coolly. We'll handle it. Haku nodded once. Outside, mist began to gather. The hunt was about to begin. The forest slowly exhaled. Leaves settled. Water stilled. The sharp metallic scent of blood faded beneath the damp breath of the land of waves. Naruto watched the spot where the hunter nin vanished, Benihime finally quiet in his grasp. Her glow dimmed, the song retreating to a low, satisfied hum. That wasn't the end, Senbon Sakura murmured within him. No, Kurami agreed. Not even close. Kakashi straightened, eye scanning the tree line one last time. We move. Now. No one argued. Tazuna's house, evening. The bridge builder's home was modest, weathered by years of salt air and hardship. Lamps were lit as they arrived, warmth spilling into the doorway. Please, come in, Tazuna said, voice still tight with shock. You've done more than I ever asked. Kakashi nodded politely, but Naruto noticed the tension still in his shoulders. Even victorious, his sensei wasn't at ease. They removed their sandals and settled inside. Sakura busied herself helping Tsunami prepare tea, trying, perhaps for the first time, to be useful without being asked. Satsuki sat near the window, eyes alert, back straight. Sasuke leaned against the wall, silent, replaying the fight again and again in his mind. Naruto sat cross-legged near the door. Waiting, Kakashi finally spoke. Naruto, you handled yourself well. Naruto shrugged lightly. He wasn't careless. Just testing me. That earned him a sharp look. Don't underestimate Zabuza Momochi, Kakashi said. If he's alive. He is, Naruto replied calmly. The room went quiet. Sasuke's head snapped up. What? Naruto met Kakashi's gaze. Those needles didn't hit where they should have. Kakashi exhaled slowly. I thought so. Satsuki clenched her fist. So that Hunter Nen is his partner, Naruto finished. And they'll come back. Outside, the wind howled faintly through the trees. Elsewhere, hidden in the fog, Zabuza lay motionless on damp earth as Haku knelt beside him, fingers trembling only slightly as she withdrew the senbon. His chest rose. Barely. Haku allowed herself one quiet breath of relief. You pushed yourself too far, she whispered, lifting him with careful strength. But it worked. They believe you're dead. Zabuza laughed weakly. That kid. Haku's eyes softened. He's dangerous. Yes, Zabuza agreed. And interesting. Mist swallowed them as they vanished deeper into the forest. Back at Tazuna's house, night fell. Naruto stood alone on the porch, moonlight tracing the scars in the land beyond the unfinished bridge. They'll come for you, Kurami said quietly. Naruto smiled, not with fear but anticipation. Good, he replied. This time, I won't hold back. Somewhere in the fog, two killers prepared their answer. And the land of waves braced itself for what was coming next.
That's all for now. If you enjoy them, please like, share, and do comment.